I do have a sponsor, 753 Academy. Our martial art programs specialize in anti-bullying programs for kids to combat proven Filipino martial arts. Pekiti Tercia Kali. We take a holistic, fun, and innovative approach that simply works. Our fitness community is friendly and supportive without the over-the-top muscle gym atmosphere. Our coaching staff are professionally trained with over 30 years of experience. Get started by claiming your free class voucher. So go to the link in the show notes. This is in the Phoenix metro area. So reach out to Coach David and Coach Eric over at 753 Academy.
Welcome to the Wounds of the Faithful podcast, brought to you by DSW Ministries. Your host is singer, songwriter, speaker, and domestic violence advocate Diana Winkler. She is passionate about helping survivors in the church heal from domestic violence and abuse and trauma. This podcast is not a substitute for professional counseling or qualified medical help. Now, here is Diana.
Welcome to the podcast once more. I appreciate you coming back to hear some more of Dana Diaz. She is on her second book that she's been talking about, Choking on Shame. And again, she was on the podcast in season 3, episode 153. So if you haven't heard part 1 of this conversation, go back to part 1. But it would be really great to also listen to episode 153, because then you would get the whole picture of her story and some really great advice and help for those of you who have been with a narcissist, or maybe you're dealing with one now. I'm not going to go through her bio again. Everything is in the show notes for you. So without delay, here we go with part 2 of my conversation with Dana Diaz.
And I guess I should clarify that. What makes it called narcissistic abuse? It's just when a narcissist abuses you. But the difference is that a narcissist will enact multiple and all abuses in some cases versus, and I'm not trying to minimize, but like in my childhood, I was physically abused and verbally abused and neglected in many ways. In my marriage to this narcissist, yes, there was verbal abuse for sure, which we discussed with the cussing, because he called me things that became as common as my name. I actually heard them more than my name. There was sexual abuse. And yes, I will debate anybody who tells me that if you're married, you cannot be sexually abused. I disagree. If you are taking advantage of a woman that does not consensually want to be with you, that is sexual abuse. There was financial abuse, so many examples of that. Legal abuse, the threatening to call the authorities, creating the narrative of you're crazy, you're unstable, I'm going to call child services, so I'll have custody of our son. If you leave me, I will do this legally to you. It's this constant threat. And then you add in all the other things, the intimidation, the stalking. You're basically scared for your life. And I always say it's like people call it walking on eggshells. I'm like, no, it was a minefield. It was a minefield because I was stepping very carefully, very cautiously. Every time I opened my mouth, even my facial expressions, I could not say anything or do anything. And World War III would erupt because of my facial expression. So I was very careful, but it doesn't matter where I stepped. Stuff was blowing up here, but I couldn't deal with it or process it because then something was blowing up over here. And then in the midst of that, I'm trying to protect my son and shelter him from as much of it as I could, even though my ex was always trying to drag him into it so that he could blame me for our son's unhealthy witness of things that no child should ever have to witness or hear between parents. So it was Yeah, it was something. And it's interesting because so many people read Gasping for Air, including the owner of my publishing company. She actually at one point messaged me and said, I thought this was nonfiction. And I said, it is. It was my true story. And
Oh.
she says, I can't even believe it. I said, well, you can't make this stuff up. Trust me. I would not have that kind of imagination, but it is a page turner. So it has appealed to people for entertainment, that just like an exciting dysfunctional relationship read, but for the bulk of people who have been through this type of relationship, I'm glad to report that I get messages every single day, of people saying that it gave them strength, or it helped them to feel less alone because they thought it was just them, or whatever it is. I've had people message me that they're finally leaving, they're divorcing, they're trying to get things in order, or whatever it is. And I am certainly not here saying go get divorced, leave whoever, because sometimes it's safer for somebody to stay. It's just the reality, unfortunately, sometimes. But I just want to give people, if nothing else, the hope that there is something more to life, and that no, you were not put here to suffer. And it hurts my heart when I hear people say that, because I remember feeling very much that way. But that's where the third book comes in, because the third book is actually the sequel to Gasping for Air. We kind of went out of order, kind of like the Star Wars movies did for a while there. But again, I only intended to ever write the one. So Gasping for Air, then we have the prequel, which is my childhood, Choking on Shame. So coming in March is Rising from the Ashes, where it picks up right where Gasping for Air left off, where I am leaving the driveway of the farm that I shared with my ex-husband, moving out, moving on with life. But I thought everything would be fine. I think when you get out of those situations, you think, oh, everything's fine, nothing can go wrong. And there's a lot of healing to do, and things are a little messy while you're doing the healing. You don't necessarily perceive healthy relationships and healthy connections the way a healthy person would, because there's this distrust and this anxiety, and there's so much still there that has to be dealt with. It's coming to the realization of those things. And as I said, coming to terms with even my mother, who went no contact with me before I even divorced with my ex. She opted to go no contact because she said that she could not be her husband's wife and my mother at the same time, and she was choosing to be his wife instead of being my mother. So that was heartbreaking, but this is my last resort in rising from the ashes. Like, okay, I'm out of this marriage. Like, there's one scene, it was hard to write in Rising from the Ashes, where I'm actually on Christmas Eve at her house. I hadn't been invited, just my son had been, but I didn't get to see him Christmas Day because of the divorce. My ex was going to have him. So that was my time with him, was Christmas Eve, and she took it without even consulting with me. So I ended up going with my son. I end up on my knees on Christmas Eve in my mother's basement on the cold ceramic tile floor, literally begging with my hands clasped, begging her just to be my mother, to see me, to come to my wedding, because I'm newly engaged to this man I've known many, many, many years. And I just wanted her to be a part of that. There was no emotion, stone face. And she actually walked away from me and left me there on the floor in tears on Christmas. So there's a lot of heartbreak, but it's a very happy ending. And we talked about coming full circle before, but the ending of Rising for Ashes, I'll give this little snippet because I haven't really talked about the book to anybody. Not even my husband knows about it. I don't let him read books until they're published. But the very end actually comes back to my mother, that I said after everything I'd been through, my healing, the key to my healing was resolving that very first relationship I had in my life. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it, because everything in my life had to do with my mother rejecting me. But it took somebody saying to me, you can't reject your mother, you can't hate her, you can't have these ill feelings towards her for how she treated you, because if you do that, you're rejecting a part of yourself. And that just that was as eye-opening as telling me I'm a child of God, because then I had to look at her, and the same person said that I had to put a picture of my mother up in my house where it was prominent. It couldn't be hidden away somewhere. And the very last chapter of the book of Rising from the Ashes is me doing that. And it was not pretty. And I had some choice words that I cannot say on this podcast to say to that picture. But you know what? I still have the picture right here in my office. And I look at it every day. I even say, "Hi, Mom." We have no relationship. She has nothing to do with me. We have no communication. But she's there because she's my mother. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
love her anyway because she was just a kid. And I forgive that. I had to come to terms with knowing that she came from an abusive household. She had an abusive alcoholic father and endured terrible domestic violence. And she was just a baby when she had me, and she was a baby who hadn't resolved her own unhealed trauma. So even though I was her baby and I expected her to handle me better, to know what to do and how to do it, she didn't. And I have to forgive that. Because I mean, what 16, 17-year-old girl that's in an abusive household would know what to do with a baby she doesn't even want? So, with that, I just encourage people to maybe look at, I'm not saying it excuses it, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's helped me get past the past to look at it with a more loving heart than a resentful one. Because if you hold on to that resentment and that anger and that pain, you don't have room for the blessings and the love and the hope for the future and in the present, everything that's right in front of you. So that's essentially where we go with Rising from the Ashes. And I want people to hear that message loud and clear.
I'm really glad that you pointed out the forgiveness aspect because we talk about that a lot. How do you forgive somebody that's done some really horrible things to you and they never repent of it? They never ask forgiveness or come around like we want them to. But I'm glad you mentioned, yeah, I can still forgive my mother in an aspect of I'm not going to let her live rent free in my head and ruin the rest of my life. I'm going to move on with my life and help other people. But yeah, I respect that. Yes, she is my mother, and that's okay to say that.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's my mother, but I don't have to let her ruin my life. I'm going to move
exactly.
on.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. I said it before, but I say it almost every day. We all make mistakes. And I can own up to mine and not feel badly about it. It's just sometimes you make a mistake. Things happen unintentionally, intentionally, we screw up. But, you know, we have to give that same grace to other people because not everybody is at the same level of consciousness. Not everybody is faithful. Even my mother, when she got with her husband, when I was very young, actually, he didn't feel he was not Christian at all. So we stopped going to church. I actually started getting rides with my friends that were Catholic or I'd sleep over at their houses on Saturday nights so I could go to Sunday Mass with them. But even in college, I was able to drive, so I would go myself and I continued that. But, it's about respect. We can't assume that everybody thinks like we do because they don't. Not everybody
No.
comes from the same history that we come from, geographic differences, cultural differences. We're all so unique, and that's a beautiful thing. But even within our own families, she has the right to make her own choices. She
Mm-hmm.
has turned herself away from God, but that is her choice. It is not my place or anyone else's to force her somewhere where she doesn't feel that she wants to be. But again, that's between her and God. But it's not my place, so I have to respect it, understand that she has the right. And I almost got even to the point in my healing where I was like, I actually have to appreciate even how she stood her ground as far as her relationship with me. As terrible it is as it is to reject your own child, She had a very clear idea of what she wanted in life and how she wanted to live her life, whether I agree with that or not. She was being true to herself and respecting herself. And self-love is not something that I had the privilege of even knowing what that was for most of my life. And I still, every once in a while, have to give myself a pat on the back or remind myself I'm pretty okay, because I grew up with such terrible self-esteem, and that first marriage didn't help at all. But my mother always had a sense of exactly who she was and what she wanted, and I did not fit
Mm,
into that. So there's things I think we can learn from people like that and understand and just give them that grace that they're having their own human experience. And it may not be the path we walked, may not be the way we would have walked it, but that's what they're doing. And just have to love them through it, pray for them, hope for them. But at the end of the day, we also have to do what gives ourselves some inner peace, which sometimes means not having that relationship with them. So I respect that about her. We have, like I said, we are completely estranged, but my life goes on. And I have her picture here in my office and I look at it every day, and it's all right. It's okay because God loves me. Again, I'm his child, and he loves my
that's
mother
right.
too, even though she's made mistakes. And hopefully one day she'll realize that there is love in her life and that she is worth more than what she has allowed herself to have, and open herself up to that. But that is not my place to force her to do so.
Mm, I'm very fortunate that
It is.
my narcissist ex, we have no contact at all because we didn't have any children together, which
Mm,
looking back, I'm grateful for that I didn't bring children into that marriage
yeah.
to suffer along with me. It would have been a different ending. But yeah, I'm able to say that I've healed significantly because I'm not in that relationship with
Yes.
him. I don't have to have any contact because when you get out of that, you have a better perspective as to what
Oh,
you
yeah.
went through rather than you're still in it and you're still dealing with this person and they're trying to make your life miserable. I was really fortunate that I just cut him off.
And you have to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the only way. And I try to tell people that you can't, there is no healing
There's
when
no
you're in those circumstances, but it's impossible. I always tell people, I liken it to growing flowers in your garden. If you plant the seeds and then as soon as the flowers start blooming, you start giving them chemicals and poison, and they're not going to keep growing. You cannot heal
no.
something. You cannot grow as a human being if you're still in that toxicity. And it's a shame sometimes that we have to cut off people that are biologically family. But I think that the way to look at that, and what has been my experience in life from a very young age, is that we're all part of God's family. And I cannot tell you how much of a difference it has made since, sadly, not having contact with my abusive mother and stepfather. And I don't have contact with my ex either, and many other people who have enabled them and sided with them in some way. But, or they have cut contact with me, which is fine. But it's amazing now that they're kind of out of the way, like pulling weeds out of that same garden. Now the weeds are gone, so I can see the other flowers that were always there, and they're rooting for me and they're growing with me and they're wanting me to grow it all, and want me to be the beautiful flower that I can be. And it's just astounding to me the difference that having supportive, encouraging, positive people around you, that what that makes versus being in those situations where every single day I was diminished, insulted, ridiculed, demeaned. It just, any negative adjective you can come up with is what that
Right.
experience is like. But then you turn that around, you can't help but smile when somebody speaks positivity to you or encourages you. And then you want to do that to others. And it has this beautiful domino effect, because I know people, there's that thing called resting bee face, that people
Mhm.
used to say that I had that back then. And it wasn't that. I was miserable. I was suffering. I wasn't, there was nothing to smile about. But now it's nice because I run into people sometimes that I haven't seen in years, and I know one person said, "Oh, it's good to see you smile again. It's good to see you laughing." Or, one person, the best compliments I've had, they looked at me just physically. They're like, "You look healthy." Because I had gotten so sickly physically during that,
Mm.
and especially towards the end of my marriage with my first husband, that yeah, even my physical health has improved with my mental health. So, and it's such an empowering thing to know, like, okay, I actually had the choice, thankfully I was able to get out of it alive, so to speak, and everything's just really good now. Everything's really good, but it's giving me that time and that space now to just tweak those little things. I call them like bruises, that sometimes somebody might say or do
Yeah.
something and that bruise gets poked a little. I'm like, "Ew, that hurts. That didn't feel good." But I can kind of explore that a little more now and be like, okay, I don't think the healing journey ever ends, but I think that
No.
we take those opportunities when our bruises get poked a little bit to say, like, okay, what do we still have here to work out? Where is that coming from? And then deal with it, because more times than not, it's the past. I always tell people it's never about the present. And usually when somebody comes at you as in confrontational, abusive, mistreats you in some way, it doesn't even have to do with you. It has to do with them. It's their
Yes.
unhealed trauma speaking to you. It's their issues with themselves, that they just can't stand something that they see about you, that it's your light that's disturbing their peace. It's your potential, your achievement that's making them feel all that yucky stuff they already feel about themselves. But all you can do is love. I just try to remind myself, even when, believe me, I always say there's the angel and the devil on my shoulders, and the devil just wants to tell them a few F-bombs and say a few things, but then the angel's like, love them, love them. And I just take a deep breath and, okay, this is coming
Mm.
from a source of pain. Remind myself of that. I know what that's like. It's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be productive or get anywhere if we're going to go back at them with more evil words, nastiness. We're just going to love. And some people aren't receptive. I had that experience last week, and a very, very nasty person who told me the most vicious and awful thing that I won't even repeat. And I went back to them with love and said, I hear pain in what you said to me, and I understand this isn't about me, but I wish that one day you would find out how wonderful you are and love yourself enough to respect and value other people's lives as well. And she came at me with an equally, just like her first message, that I deserved what she said to me in the beginning. And that's that. Some people just don't want to hear it, they don't want to receive it. But that's not going to change who I am or make me change my character. I'm still going to come from a good place and remind myself there is evil in the world. There are people in this world that want to sit with their demons and stay there forevermore. All I can do is love them and pray for them. That's it. I just like my mother, I
Exactly.
can't make that choice for them. It's kind of like drug and alcohol addiction. They have to be able, just like we had to when we were in our situations, you have to make the choice for yourself. Nobody could have told me. I had people say, you don't look happy, or he's a real this or that, and you should get out. You think I don't know that? You don't think I don't know I was being mistreated? Of course I did. But it's just not that easy to walk away, especially when you do have a child with a person. It makes it that much more complicated, but if nothing else
Yes.
but legally and financially, it's a little more complicated. Yeah, there's just so much there, but all in all, I just hope people know that there's choices, there's hope, and one of the biggest choices you can make, and kind of like how I said about me and my sister, is just to choose where you're coming from. Choose to come from a place of love, because putting yourself out there, behaving in negative ways, behaving in ways that basically like they're acting, is not going to get you anywhere. And it's not going to solve that. This world is angry and full of hate more now than ever. And I don't think we need to participate in that hatred and that division at all. We need to actually turn that around a little bit. And we all can make that difference by starting with the people in our house. Well, start with ourselves, and then your kids, your spouse, your whoever, your grandma, your coworkers, the person at church, the person that you run into at the library or the post office or wherever. Just be kind. Be kind. And maybe then they'll be a little kinder that day too to somebody else.
Mm. I agree with that. I wanted to comment on what you said about the bruises.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 52 and I had some triggers this past year and just brought up some stuff from my past that I couldn't deal with the physical response to those memories. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to a professional therapist and a psychologist, and I've had some peer counseling and peer groups that were extremely helpful, but I'm really glad that I have a therapist to help me through these bruises or
Yeah.
triggers that have come up in my life right now. I mean, I was married to my ex and I left in 2008. That was a long time ago, but it's never too late to get some help and to reach out to get help with
100%.
some of these things. I know my dear friend that I do mending the soul groups with. She's a senior citizen now, and she just wrote her book of her life after her abuse was from her childhood and she had some memory loss, but she's finally getting to write her book now. And she's a fantastic writer as well. But what would you say to folks that they hear you and they see you writing these books about your experience, but they're afraid to write their story? They're like, people are going to judge me. They're not going to like what I say, or they're going to sue me. Or what would you say to somebody that might be thinking about writing their story? Scared.
Well, those are all very valid concerns. And as somebody who is now publishing book three, they are still valid concerns. I am actually surprised that I have not faced any legal consequences, although
Mm.
on the other hand, it's very unlikely in my, at least from my experience, I don't know many people who would like raise their hands loudly and say, "Oh, that's me in that book." You don't want to claim that you're that person who did these awful things, but I tried to be, I wrote my stories. I actually, Gasping for Air came from a journal that I kept when it was towards the end of my marriage to my first husband, because I honestly thought that I was going to end up dead and that it would be made to look like an accident or there would be some excuse. And I wanted there to be a record of what was really going
Ooh,
on in that house. So the
wow.
stories came out of that journal. So if nothing else, I tell people just journal, because sometimes I was joking with a friend this week, like some days my mind is like a bingo, like that barrel they spin in bingo before they pull the little thing out. Like it's all the stuff just jumbling
Oh,
around
six.
that sometimes if you just do, I've heard it called a brain dump, I've heard it called free writing, but just write
Mm.
everything. Don't monitor yourself, don't feel bad. You let it come out however it comes out, even if it's not how you would normally talk. Say what you have to say, be angry, be hurt, cry, whatever. Get it out. Because the interesting thing is that one, you'll feel better because it's like outside of you now. It's literally like extracting that pain from you and putting it on something else. It does actually make you feel mentally better. But you'll notice after a while when you go back, you'll start noticing patterns because visually you learn differently than mentally, if that makes any sense. So, like, even when I was writing
Mm.
Gasping for, actually, even the third book, all of my writing, I'd read and have to revise over and over. And I would have a wake up in the middle of the night with, oh my gosh, like my brain just realized after I've written these stories that it's kind of like connecting the dots, like a detective or investigator trying to figure out a murder with all the strings on the walls pointing to this and that. It's like your brain starts doing these connect the dots and you start making these connections and realizing things you hadn't seen before, because when it's all in your head, it is just jumbling around like that bingo barrel. So
Mm.
it's good to get it out of you. But if you actually do want to get into publishing a story, yes, there unfortunately those fears are valid. They are always going to be there because as long as something is in print, if somebody does feel, even if you change their names, even if you change other geographical details, different things, if somebody can provide enough evidence that those circumstances or that person or whatever it was is actually them and wants to take you to court, they unfortunately do have a case. And so I would definitely advise speaking to an attorney, speaking to different insurance companies, because there are insurances you could get to cover to have that protection for libel and things
Really?
like that. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's an expense, but it's one worth having if you're going to be speaking your truth. But the thing that's been the struggle for me has been the judgment, because surprisingly, the judgment has not even come from the people who have done awful things to me. It has come from their family members, which
Mm-hmm.
are and or were my family members. You'd be surprised how many people just don't want to believe you and will call you all kinds of things under the sun. On the lighter
Because they
end,
weren't there. They weren't where you were.
they
They
weren't
didn't
there,
see all
but
that.
they didn't. But the thing is, for them to believe you, they have to believe they love a monster.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm
Yep,
saying?
that's pretty much it.
My ex-mother-in-law, who I loved like a mother because she was a mother to me all those years my mother was not. My sister-in-law, who is my best friend, even people in my life, mutual friends, even people that taught my son at his school that got word and read the book. And no, for you to say those things about him or even about my mother or whatever in that book, I have to be the villain so that they feel better about associating with somebody who's capable of doing the things that I claim they did. So the judgment is honestly the biggest thing, but I say it almost every day. God is the only judge. God is the only judge. You know what? And I know my truth. I know my truth firmly, and I can't let other people get me down. And let me tell you, strangers will say the most vile things, the most horrendous things behind an email or a social media post or however they communicate with you, because they have that anonymity behind a screen.
Yeah.
And it is cruel. The things I have been told, such horrific things. And here I am, like, I'm just trying to help people heal. I think I'm doing a good thing. And the pushback is very strong. But what I've noticed and what I have to tell myself to keep putting one foot in front of the other is that those are the people, the ones who go through that great effort to go to my website and click on contact Dana to email me or put the post out or however they communicate their nastiness to me. I hit something. I hit some nail on the head. I poked one of their bruises. That's what
Mm-hmm.
that is. And so, in a sense, I look at those like, okay, I hear the pain. I want to love them and help them, but they're not receptive right now, and that's okay. Hopefully that will come. But I got to say, okay, good job, Dana, because something I said or did got to them and they can't let it go. It's haunting them. So maybe that's the propellant for change. Maybe that's the thing that's going to compel them to change their circumstances or to take control of their life and get that healing that they need. Because I want to touch upon real quick what you said. I'm 49. Let me tell you, I get so many people that contact me. I just started this month co-leading a women's group for healing from childhood abuse. And the comment we get the most is that people that are our age, 40s, 50s, 60s, even, I've even had a few in the 70s, that they kind of blame themselves. They shame themselves because, well, why now? How come it took me so long? I'm going to answer that right now for you and I, and for all these people that have said that to themselves. We were trying to live. We were trying to survive, number
Yes.
one. When we got out, we had to go to work every day, like we probably still do now. We were raising
Mm-hmm.
children, possibly, which is not an easy task. We had family commitments, church commitments, whatever it was. Life gets very busy. Life is very distracting. But I feel like when you get to where we're about in age, like for example, my son, he's going to be 22 very soon. He bought his own house. He's moved up.
Yeah.
When you start to
Empty
be left
nesters.
with, yeah, when you start to be left with your own thoughts and you have time to reflect back and you're not in this constant hustle and bustle and have to and gotta and da, then you're like, oh my God, what the hell happened to me? You start to think back on the past, like, okay. And then when those things hit you, when somebody does say that thing or poke that bruise, you have the time and you're like, oh, what was that about? That was so long ago. And that's when you start really thinking about it. And that's when you have the opportunity and the time to usually take the reins of your healing. So if that's any incentive, I think it's always good, whether you have a therapist or a group or whatever. There's so many, there's goat yoga, there's musical healing modalities. There's so many different options available to people right now that no matter what your niche is, so to speak, you can find something that will help you resolve all those feelings of the past, no matter what age you are.
Yeah. Reach out to one of us.
Yes.
You all out there. We have resources. We know people
Yes.
wherever you are, even in other parts of the world.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that the folks know where to get your books.
Not a problem. Yeah, you can go to my website, danasdiaz.com. The links for the 2 that are out are there, and then the 3rd book will be on there when it comes out. Or you can go straight to Amazon, anywhere books are sold online. I can't get the books on shelves of the major retailers because of the content and the language. They have all rejected the application to have them on the bookshelves, but you can go anywhere online. I have it in it's on Kindle, so you can get the ebook if you like having it on your phone or your iPad or whatever. Sometimes that's easier, it's more affordable. And if you are in an abusive situation still, that would be the best option because you don't want a book that says abuse in the title sitting on your coffee table. So, but it is available wherever books are sold online.
This has been great to have you back on the show again, and your invitation is, open door for you.
Oh, thank you.
Dana,
I appreciate that.
I know you're gonna write some more books. You're gonna have a big long series like Star Wars here, and yeah, I'll eat it right up here. Just come back on, let me know if you have anything else to share with us. It's good to see you. I'm so related to what you shared so eloquently today.
I appreciate that. And again, I just want everybody to know that there is hope and there are people that are behind you. Even if you think you're alone, we're all with you and God is with you, most importantly.
Amen. God bless you.
You as well.
Thank you for listening to the Wounds of the Faithful podcast. If this episode has been helpful to you, please hit the subscribe button and tell a friend. You can connect with us at dswministries.org, where you'll find our blog along with our Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel links. Hope to see you next week.